Hey everyone, welcome to my vlog. I talk about my late diagnosed autistic ADHD experience. I also have total aphantasia and a memory disorder, and I talk about all of these on my channel. So today I actually have a very important subject to talk about, and that is when people say one of two things. They will say, everyone's a little bit autistic, or they will say, oh, everyone has that trait when you mention like a specific autistic trait. For one thing, the most important takeaway is that when someone is sharing a autism diagnosis with you, then saying those things diminishes their experience right away. They're opening up to you, and if you are trying to reassure them by saying everyone's a little autistic, it really makes it feel like they aren't being heard, because one, it's not true, and I'm going to go into that. And second, it also makes it sound like, oh, there must be something wrong with being autistic if you're trying to make them not feel bad for being autistic. So when someone's telling you they're autistic, just accept them. Just say, oh, can you tell me more about that? Or I don't know much about autism. Or, maybe you have an idea of what autism is in your mind and that person doesn't match it. That's okay, because the media representation of autism is very inaccurate. And so you can say, hey, I really had an idea of autism, but maybe I need to learn more. Just be honest. That's okay too. So not everyone has a little bit of autism. Autism is binary. You are autistic or you are allistic, two different brain types. Autism is under the neurodivergent umbrella. So neurodivergent is like a lot of different things. So you could be autistic, ADHD, dyslexic, aphantasia and SDAM are also under the neurodivergent umbrella. Bipolar, dissociative identity disorder, like neurodivergent is a lot of things. Autism is one neurodivergency. If you are neurodivergent, then that means you are not neurotypical. But you can be neurodivergent and allistic. So for instance, if you have bipolar disorder, but you're not autistic, that means that you are neurodivergent, but you are also allistic, which is just a word that means not autistic. So I know that can get a little confusing, and it takes some practice trying to kind of figure out the differences between neurodivergent, neurotypical, allistic, and autistic. But what I'm saying is, autism is binary. You either are or you aren't. And one of the things when people say, everyone shares these autistic traits, and that's true because all autistic traits are human traits. So for instance, if an autistic person comes up to you and says, oh my gosh, loud music just is very overstimulating for me, and you're allistic, you're not autistic, and you're like, oh yeah, I don't like loud music either, that doesn't mean you're autistic. Here's how I like to explain it. For an allistic person, someone who is not autistic, the traits that autistic people share, because they are human traits, are mildly annoying, maybe really frustrating to that allistic person. I'm going to use an analogy. It's like a really annoying, persistent fly at a picnic. For that allistic person, the loud music on that day, like maybe they didn't sleep very well and the loud music is just really not grooving with them that day. It's like a fly at a picnic. You don't go on picnics every day. So, the loud music isn't going to bother them every day. And it's really flying, but like you just want to swat it away. It's annoying, right? For an autistic person, when we say, oh, that loud music is very overstimulating, it's like a swarm of wasps that we have to deal with at every single meal that we eat. So when we're talking about autistic traits, the frequency and the intensity is what leads to an autistic diagnosis.
This unclear communication is part of what led to a late diagnosis, because when I would mention these things and people said, me too, I thought everyone is experiencing it like I was. It's not necessarily anyone's fault, but it is why we need more autism awareness.
And if you just have like one or two things, you might not be autistic. You might have like a sensory processing disorder. There is a lot more to autism than just sharing a couple of autistic traits. But when you have a lot of autistic traits, you have them on a daily or very, very frequent times period, and the intensity of the overstimulation is high, then that's what autism is. Sometimes, I'll say, oh, this tag in the shirt, I've got to cut it out. It's driving me crazy. One thing, a lot of allistic people, a tag might bother them in the morning, but then their brains tune it out as the day goes on. For an autistic person, I'm always aware of my clothing at all times. Like I never fully tune out the way my clothes feel. That's why on videos, you'll see me tugging at my clothes all the time. Like my brain does not tune out the sensory experience of wearing clothes. Now, some clothes are worse than others. The lighting in this video is really bugging me. Ah, that's better. Okay. That's another one. Hold on, let me get back to that. Okay, so like right now I'm wearing just a really comfortable t-shirt. I'm aware of it. It's not really bothering me, but I am aware of it, where an allistic brain will just tune out the feeling of clothing, especially something that's not irritating. But like a tag, sometimes it's like those wasps are attacking me. Like I'm scratching at my skin. I have to get rid of that. And then light, for an allistic person, on a bright sunny day, they're like, oh, I need my sunglasses, or this is like, oh, this is bright, I don't like it. For an autistic person, the light level is constantly on my mind. Like, is it too bright or too light? Some autistic people really prefer to be in the dark, like a very dim light all the time or for most of the time. And some people really need to have lots of bright lights. Again, that's where the spectrum of autism is. It's in the traits. So, and a specific autistic person might be hypersensitive to light or hyposensitive to light. My lighting needs change. Some days it's like I need a lot of bright light, and some days it's like I need it super dim. So for me, that's very fluctuating, and that's also really common across all traits. A lot of times you can be mostly one way with a trait, but on another day, because it's not a static disability, it might be different. Loud noises most of the time are way too stimulating and intense for me. But if I'm in control of the music, say like I'm in my car, I'm by myself, I can turn the volume up and down or off when it gets to be too much. I can actually listen to music really loud, and sometimes I need that as a sensory experience. Like I need it to be really loud for a few minutes. Some autistic people, especially autistic ADHD people, they tend to really like having music on all the time. That I can't. Like I need quiet most of the time. Noise is one of my biggest things that causes super overstimulation. Another thing that autistic people might say, and we will get diminished really quickly, is we'll say something like, I really struggle to make friends. And an allistic person will say, yeah, it's hard to make friends as an adult. Like everyone struggles with that. Again, part of the diagnostic criteria for autism is struggling in social situations. So I can appreciate that an allistic person, for a variety of reasons, might have a hard time making a friend. Maybe their work schedule doesn't allow them to have much social time, or maybe they are allistic but they're introverted. Maybe they trying to think of scenarios. Maybe they've just moved to a new city and they just haven't found new ways to integrate and find new things. Like, it's true, because it's a human trait again. It can be very difficult for a allistic person to make friends. Maybe they're allistic, but they're disabled, in a different way. There's just so many things. But for an autistic person, when we say we struggle with friendships, it's part of our diagnostic criteria. Like, it's been a lifelong struggle. I don't think I've ever had an actual best friend. The people that I have considered a best friend in my life, later on, I found out that they did not consider me to be their best friend. A lot of my friendships have been very one-sided. This wasn't something that I learned about until after my diagnosis, and I kind of like went back and looked over some friendships. So I've had good friends, but I've struggled to ever maintain friendships. I have very few friends that have lasted more than 2 years. I have had some, so that's, I cherish those friendships, but it has been ever since, elementary school, a struggle for me to make and keep and have friends. This is not a normal experience for most allistic people. Like, they might struggle to make a friend, but once they have a friend, the relationship lasts for a long time, or there's a matched energy with that friendship. It's not one-sided. There's just a lot more social intricacies that they kind of understand within that friendship that the autistic people we struggle with. And a similar one to that is, oftentimes I will tell somebody, I struggle with communication and I'm always misunderstood. Like, I will send an email, and I've talked about this in a recent video. I'll send an email and I'm misunderstood. And an autistic person will tell me, oh yeah, I get misunderstood too. Like, nobody's gonna understand you all the time. Again, intensity and frequency. I get misunderstood so often when I think that I'm speaking very clearly. And it's been fun because on this channel, a lot of people who are also autistic will understand what I'm talking about. But in general, in the real world population, I get misunderstood so often. It is a weekly, if not daily, frequency where I will have to try to explain my words in a different way or come out about it. And allistic people aren't really trained to understand, to look for these miscommunications. And so it's up to the autistic person to put in all the extra work to try to get the communication. And one of the problems and struggles with that is when we are asking clarifying questions or trying to make sure that we're understood, then we might be told we're talking too much because we're giving too many details. We might be told that we're being redundant. Like, okay, you've said that 3 times now. It's like, well, yeah, but do you understand what I'm saying? We also will get told that, sorry, I just got distracted by something. I have this really cute giraffe that my mom got me, and it's sitting on my desk. And I've always loved it, but today I just looked at it and my eyes just was like, those black dots are like a sensory ick. I just looked at that and I was just like internally cringing at these dots that have never bothered me before. See, dynamic. And it's weird things like this in your environment that will cause our brains to just like short circuit for a second. So in the middle of a sentence, this thing caught my eye and I have to take energy to go, this is not an important detail. Don't talk about it. Don't bring it up, which I'm going to because this is a learning vlog. Like, that's the whole point of this. But like, if it was a normal other conversation that I was having with somebody, environmental things that our brains recognize, we have to, because we don't tune out stuff, but to mask, to have a normal conversation, we have to don't say it and then focus really hard on what we were trying to say and keep the conversation going. And it's so difficult because this is like all the time. I mean, just a while ago, as I'm facing my window, a cat walked up outside and I'm like, don't mention the cat, don't mention the cat. It's a cute cat, but they can't see the cat. Just keep talking, keep talking. And this is in a quiet environment and I still get so easily distracted. Okay, hold on. What was I even talking about? I might have to pause and rewind and remember, which I have the luxury of doing when you're filming, but when you're in real life, you can't do that. Being misunderstood. The other thing that people will say when you're autistic and you're trying to get clarifying information, I can't think of the right word, but it's where the person will think that you're trying to be better than them. Like, and it may be because you're asking questions that they don't know the answer to, and so then they get defensive. But you're not. You're just trying to get the information. You don't know that they don't know the answer. You don't care that they don't know the answer. If they just say, "Oh, sorry, I don't know the answer to that. I can help you," or you're like, "Okay, cool. Now I can go on to like finding the answer from somebody else who knows." Like, it's fine that you don't know. Just tell me that, so then we can like move on, right? But instead, you'll get meted with hostile energy because they feel threatened. That's the word. They feel like you're threatening them because you're trying to ask questions that they don't know the answers to. So, to summarize, if somebody comes up and tells you that they are autistic, ADHD, this actually applies to a lot of disabilities. Just accept that. Ask them questions. I mean, if they are sharing that diagnosis with you, then that means they're probably interested in telling you more. They are looking for allies and friendships and acceptance. And for you to tell them, you don't look autistic, everybody does that, or, oh my gosh, my brain is scrambled right now. Everyone does that, or yeah, you don't look autistic, then that will shut them down, make them feel diminished, feel like they're not being understood again. Like we're trying to explain something to you and you are not hearing us and listening to us. So please keep that in mind. And I'm going to add this one to the playlist of videos to share with friends and family because some of these things are hard to explain to loved ones. So if you were sent this video, it's because somebody in your life is autistic or ADHD and they are trying to find a way for you to hear that their experience when they say these things, these traits, when they're saying things are too loud, too bright, too overstimulating, it is not the same. The words are the same, the language is the same, but the internal experience is not the same as the allistic person. The flies at a picnic versus the wasps at every meal is just a really good way to kind of like explain the intensity and the frequency. I hope y'all enjoyed this video and I'll see you on the next one. Bye. What do you know, Watson? What do you know?